Good evening. In our previous video, we had a look at the nature and scope of economics, under which we covered the three areas: subject matter of economics, economics being a art or a science, and third, economics being a positive or a normative science. Taking ahead further, let's deal with the subject matter of economics. Under subject matter of economics, what we study is the contents that go into the subject of economics. Now, there are two ways of looking at the subject matter of economics. One is to go with the traditional way, where we end up taking the various definitions or meaning that has been given by different economists from time to time for economics. And the second way is to look at the modern approach of classifying economics into two branches, that is micro and macro. First, taking up the traditional way of looking at the definition of economics, we get to have a look at the traditional way gets classified into two types by Ellen Fraser. So Ellen Fraser, based on the meaning of economics given by different economists, he classified it into two parts. One is the type A and the other one is type B. Type A, he said, relates some with the wealth and the material welfare, and this covers the classical and the neoclassical economists. And type B is where the definition or the meaning of economics has been related with the scarcity of means. Picking up the classical school of economic thought, that is the first school of economic thought that we come across. Before I take up the classical school, let's understand what do you mean by the school of economic thought. School, if you just have a general meaning of it, the dictionary meaning of it, it refers to a group or a school of people who are having a common viewpoint. So all those people who hold a common viewpoint, they form a group of themselves just because they carry the same thought process. So if you have the same thought process and you express the same kind of opinion or you believe in that same kind of idea, then you come together to form a group. And in the same way, under economics, all those who had the same kind of opinion, they formed a group and termed themselves or called themselves as classical. This classical school of economic thought, as you see, it started in the late 18th century and it lasted till the last quarter of the 19th century. The ones who were the prominent kind of people under this school of economic thought were Adam Smith, Ricardo, Malthus, Sayce, and Mill. Adam Smith is known as the father of economics. So, taking up the definition of Adam Smith, you get to have a look at it that Adam Smith, he looked at economics as a science of wealth. For him, it was like all that wealth that gets created so as to enrich the people and the sovereign. And therefore, the title of his book, which he wrote in 1776, goes as Nature and Causes of Wealth of Nations. So where he clearly defines economics as something which has something to do with the production of wealth. And this production of wealth has to make the people rich as well as the higher authority. So this word sovereign was used by him just because of the time period in which the thought came in was the time when the kings ruled the kingdoms or the countries had that same kind of monarchy going on in their area. So even if the government were there, government formation was there, but then sovereign was something which was more prevalent during that time. So the higher authority could be a king, the higher authority could be a government. Just because Adam Smith associated himself with the production of wealth, therefore you get to see that his definition got rejected by people. The common people, they rejected the definition given by him and they dismissed economics and called it as a dismal science, a science which makes somebody feel sad and bad about. So who were the ones who felt bad or sad about it? Were the ones who were excluded from the scope of economics, just because the definition given by Adam Smith had something to do with the wealth. So it means that wealth was taken as an end in itself. It was taken as to be complete in itself. And all those people who were involved in the production of wealth, they were excluded from it. So finally, who mattered the most for the economy or for the society? The ones who possessed that wealth in the end. And all that labor class and the employees who worked in or helped or assisted in the production of that wealth, they were excluded from the study of economics as per Adam Smith. Stress was laid on material wealth. So the wealth was in terms of physical sense, material means which could be seen and touched. So it was like how much of money you have in your coffers, or the gold and the silver that lies, or the bullion that you have with yourself. Just because this definition given by Adam Smith got rejected by people, it did not get accepted by the common people. So you get to have a new school of thought rising, a new group rising, which was termed as neoclassical. And this neoclassical, it flourished in Europe and in USA. The famous adherents of this particular class of thought was Marshall and Fisher. Now, Marshall, who is also given a credit for laying down the foundation of microeconomics, he raised the state of economics rather than getting rejected by people. He raised the status by calling economics as a study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. So he did not speak about only the final generation of the wealth. He said that it is something to do with the mankind who is involved in the ordinary business of life. Ordinary business of life means that how we are engaged in earning our livelihood by undertaking any kind of production activity. It examines that part of individual and social action which is most closely connected with the attainment and with the use of the material requisites of well-being. So he kind of did not ignore the common man. He spoke about how the mankind altogether is involved in the entire business and in the entire business of earning their livelihood and coming out with the production of goods. And that has something to do with the attainment of a material welfare. Thus, his definition on one side became a study of wealth, and on the other side, it became a study of the man. Just because he included everyone under the fold of it, he said everybody is busy in a kind of production of goods and services. Services was not mentioned in the olden times since services never constituted a major part of the GDP during those times or GNP during those times. So it was basically to do with the production of goods. But then, as we ordinary people are engaged in the production or taking up a livelihood for ourselves and engaged in the production of goods and goods for ourselves, naturally, on one side, it is a study of man. And why would we be interested in taking up a job or doing a work just because we would like to get money, and with that money, we would end up purchasing goods that can add to our comfort. So if we have to take up some basic or important points from it, you get to see that Marshall, he speaks about economics as a study of man and welfare. Wealth was never taken as an end in itself. That was not end in itself means it was not only the wealthy people that you are going to discuss here, but that wealth has to be procured so as to buy things that can add to our material welfare. So Marshall, he lifted the status of economics by calling it as a study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. But then there are certain criticisms that comes along with the definition. The criticism is that he spoke about that part of social welfare that could be measured only in terms of money. So you are discussing about the welfare, you are talking about the state of happiness of mankind, but that state of happiness was associated with the money. And he did not pay attention to the non-material welfare. The joy of simply taking up a job or taking up a work just because it gives you happiness or it gives you a pleasure. So you are engaged in production just because you have to get something in return which can be measured in terms of money. So it's something that you can earn and procure or buy things with it which can be seen and touched. That was something which was spoken by Marshall. Now, Robbins, who came after Marshall and he gave his own new way of looking at how economics could be defined as. He raised an objection to the use of word welfare along with material. He said, welfare, which you are saying, that adds to the comfort and gives pleasure and is a state of human happiness, it is not necessary that all material items are going to give you a state of happiness or it's going to add to your comforts. There can be production of such items which are material in nature, but they may not add to our welfare. For example, the production of cigarettes or alcohol, the consumption of it by the person who purchases it with the wealth may have an experience, may have that pleasure and joy for a momentarily time period, but it may never end up adding to the welfare of him or her and of the family in the long run. So Robbins, he said that, okay, you're talking about a ordinary person who is involving himself or herself in producing of goods and coming out with the money at the end of the day. With the production of goods, you get the money. You are utilizing that money to buy items which add to your material welfare, all that welfare that can be seen and touched. So you are purchasing a sofa or an AC or a fridge for yourself. It is adding to your comfort, but not necessary that all material goods are going to be of welfare for you. Robbins, he termed the definition given by Marshall as classificatory. Classificatory means that you are classifying, you are forming a group that is engaged in the production and adding production of what? Production of those goods that is going to add to your material welfare. He said the definition is classificatory rather than being analytical. Analytical means that you're not giving you're not analyzing it, you're not closely looking at it. So you're not closely investigating, right? So that's how it got criticized by Robbins. For this session, it is enough for today. In the coming session, we'll discuss about Robbins.